Hey guys, welcome back to Math It Up with TJ, and in this video we're going to break down how to convert decimals to percents and percents back to decimals. Let's look at a few examples. The first thing we need to do is we're going to move our decimal point 2 places over to the right. So I've got 45 hundredths, I've got 3 4/10, I've got 7 tenths, and I've got 85 thousandths. Let's look at 45 hundredths. We're going to move our decimal point 2 place values over to the right. So if I take my decimal and I move it over 2 place values, 45 hundredths now becomes 45%. You can just add your percent sign at the end. And you can also drop the decimal because there's no more other numbers to the right of that decimal. Let's look at 3 4/10. The first problem I see is that I only have one number to the right of the decimal. I need to move my decimal point 2 place values to the right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a 0 here just to give me a placeholder. And it helps avoid any confusion. I'm going to take my decimal and I'm going to move it 2 places to the right. 1, 2. So now 3.4 becomes 340%. Let's look at 7 tenths. Once again, I've only got one number to the right of that decimal. So I'm going to add a 0 just to give me a placeholder and help me stay organized. I'm going to take my decimal and I'm going to move it 2 places to the right. 1, 2. And 7 tenths as a percent becomes 70%. In my last example, I'm going to take my decimal and I'm going to move it 2 places over to the right. 1, 2. So now this decimal as a percent becomes 8.5%. And notice I had to keep my decimal point because I do have a number to the right of that decimal, and that matters. It makes a difference. I was also able to drop those zeros because they don't hold any value to the left of the decimal. So 0.085 as a decimal is 8.5%. Now let's look at how to convert percents to decimals. It's very similar, except now we're going to move that decimal point 2 places to the left. The first problem that I run into is there is no decimal point to move, except for in one of them. I see 7.3% right here. That's the only one that has a decimal. Well, the other 3, they do have decimals, they're just invisible. So what we're going to do, we're going to bring them to life. All the decimals rest at the very end, to the very right of the number. So 18%, we're going to add our decimal. 125%, add our decimal. 40%, add our decimal. So now I have decimals to move, visible decimals to move. Let's start with 18%. We're going to move it 2 places to the left. 1, 2. So 18% as a decimal is going to be 0.18, and we're going to drop our percent sign. Let's come over to 125%. We're going to move that decimal 2 places to the left. 1, 2. So our decimal for 125% was going to be 1.25. Let's look at 40%. Move it over 2 places to the left. 1, 2. So 40% as a decimal is 0.4. If you want to add that 0 at the very end, you can. It still holds the same value. 7.3%. I'm going to move it 2 places to the left. However, again, I've only got one number to the left of that decimal, so I'm going to add a 0 just as a placeholder so I can stay organized, and it helps me move it exactly 2 places to the left. 1, 2. So my decimal for 7.3% is going to be 0.073. And you can drop the percent sign.